Hey everybody, for this week's video we are sharing the story of one of our favorite traditions out here at Liberty Farms, that being sap season. We make our own maple syrup annually and this year was no exception, aside from perhaps the weirdest winter we can remember within the last 10 years. It was just strange. So before we dive into that, we have an exciting announcement regarding the SOO Line 730 steam locomotive in Gladstone. For those who remember our last video on the 730, the group that was formed solely to preserve the locomotive, that being the SOO Line 730 Authority, recently attained the status of a 501c3, which means they are now officially and legally recognized as a nonprofit organization. This is a huge achievement for the 730 Authority, as now they have further validation and recognition to their cause, and any further efforts to make changes for the betterment and preservation of the locomotive will now be simpler when negotiating with other agencies involved. So we will keep you all informed on any further developments with the SOO Line 730 and the Authority as we go further into the working season. But for now, it's time to show you guys how we make syrup out here at the railway. So that being said, I'm going to hand things over to Paul and let's get started.
Hello again. We promised you a sap video in the last one, so here it is. We're going to make a maple syrup video. We're going to go through the entire process, start to finish. The first thing we got to do is, if you're anything like me, any available space you have when you're not using it, it kind of turns into a storage area. So we got a mess. We got to clean everything up. We built a little breezeway on here to hopefully keep things a little neater and cleaner. So we got a little bit of construction going on. We got to clean all that stuff out of here. We're gonna get the pan cleaned up. We're gonna start a fire, sterilize this, clean the entire sap shack out. It's quite a process just to get going. So as soon as we get that done, we're gonna start tapping trees today. A very odd winter. As you can see, we hardly have any snow. We probably could have been tapped for 2 weeks with the warm weather we've been having. This next week looks like a really great week for sap. Cold at night, warm during the day. So we're hoping to get a nice little week out of this, get a few gallons of syrup. And we're gonna take you along for the journey. So we're gonna start by checking out the inside of the building, showing you what we gotta do just to prepare to make maple syrup. So come on in. Well, welcome to the inside. Storage shed, not really. But we've been collecting bottles. People have old bottles they've been giving us, so they just get thrown in here. We gotta clean everything out of here. We gotta clean the floors. We gotta, lots of work, lots of fill. Make this acceptable to boil some syrup. And hopefully when you come back in a little bit, we'll have this cleaned and we'll be sterilizing our pan. So following in my grandparents' footsteps, we are doing everything traditional around here. So we picked up this old antique wood cook stove, which we are gonna get this all set up, and we are gonna finish our maple syrup on this wood cook stove. And we try to do things as traditional as possible around here. So this is how they did it 100 years ago. This is how we're gonna do it. So we're gonna use the stove that I built to boil it down to get it really close to being finished. And then we're going to pull it off and we're going to put it on this wood cook stove and actually finish it and bring it right to syrup. So we're going to take you on a little trip into the past. We're gonna take a little walk over to our old sap shack where we started. My grandparents made maple syrup over there for years. My father took it over. Then I took it over. The sap shack was built on top of a hill and all the trees were down below. So when you collected the syrup, you had to come up the hill with everything. Man, let me tell you, it was a workout. So we moved the entire sap process over to this new location, right by the railroad grade. And we built our shack here on the bottom of the hill. We do everything old school, so we collect and carry everything by hand, and we get to walk downhill to the sap shack, which is still a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but it's better than carrying it uphill.
There's your daddy. Step in the next hole.
So the entire stove over there was old, it was decrepit. I built this one. This was a 4x8 sheet of 1/2-inch steel. And I built and designed this. It's pretty neat when you see it in action. I've actually straightened this once. From the heat here, you can see how this is bowed. And we're gonna take this out of here. We're gonna straighten this again. I got baffles in here to deflect the heat. And we're gonna put stainless pipe in here so we don't have to worry about rust falling into our SERP. But hey, you learn as you go. Like I said, we do everything old school. I followed my grandparents and how they did everything, and we kind of mimicked what they did when they were young. So roughly right where the gator was, we used to park a 1949 John Deere A. And then right here was a buzzsaw, and we'd cut up all our firewood, similar to what we got going on here, but the pile was actually where I'm standing. There she is. Lots of history, lots of sap came out of here. Moving to the next trees. So at one time we had built a roof over here. You can see where we bolted this up. The old girl's falling apart. It was getting to the point where it was going to fall over, so the last day we made sap here, I actually severed it from the building and we pushed that over so it didn't fall on anybody. But this whole area right up here, up to this pine tree, was a big woodshed. So this was all wood right in this area here. Dirt floors. The old sap shack. That is some of my work. I built some benches in here to sit on. I don't know who built this. I believe my dad put these windows in. My grandfather or great-grandfather might have built this building. This is some more of my work here. I built this bench. Wasn't much for seating in here.
Yeah, I can get my buddy Rob to get a Chevelle up here. Oh, hi, I'm on camera.
Yeah, see my eyes are open. I'm smiling.
Yo!
That looks like it was all cut by hand. Them are not circular saw marks or bandsaw marks. So I did a little unconventional building when I built our sap shack. I built it after this one. And most builders probably say this isn't the right way to do it, but there's no purlins across here and nothing to hold that tin all the way down to the eave. And I built mine the same way. I copied this because I see people when they build buildings today, they put the rafters up and then they put purlins across this way, then they put the tin on it so they have places to screw every 2 feet or whatever they desire. But the only problem with that is when you're boiling in a small place like this, all that steam evaporates, it gets onto the tin, it runs down to the purlin, then the purlin gets all wet, and then it drips. So the entire shack drips on you when you're trying to make maple syrup. this way here, it all runs down to the edge of the tin right outside, and it just drips onto the ground. I'm sure builders nowadays and code officials would not like that, but I'm telling you, it works. This is where we used to tap. I don't know if you can see the steps that were carved in. We had to carry everything up. And we tapped all the maple trees down in this area, all the way back over here to the river. The ones by the river ran really nice. And then we'd follow the river all the way up around, probably 1/8 of a mile, and we tap all the way up around the river.
You don't go backwards.
This is where I grew up. That's pretty special. I don't think she's in use anymore. I'd say the good old days, but man, I don't agree with that. Any wood chips out that are still in the hole?
Wait, watch and drip it.
Okay.
Watch and wait for the drip. Hey, wait for the drip.
Might not.
Wait for the camera. They ain't coming.
Might not drip yet.
It had been a while since we went to go see the old stomping grounds, and it never fails to amaze me how every time we go back there, it feels like visiting an old friend. A lot of memories were made out here, and we can't say enough just how special this place is to us. But we still have a lot of work to do, and the sap is definitely running. So let's get started on getting this year's batch squared away.
Nothing better than the first fire, smoke, and some homemade cinnamon rolls to start off the sapping season. So what I'm doing here, I'm cheating. We drill a hole roughly 2 inches in the tree with a 7/16 bit. I put a mark at 2.5 because a lot of times that bark is really thick. You got to keep that in mind, because if the bark is thin, you only want to do your 2-inch hole. But I mark it with some tape. That's what you call high-tech engineering right there. Okay, we're gonna start right here. So you want to make sure it's good and stiff. You don't want to tap it in too far, because the grain of the tree runs this way and you'll actually split the tree. And if you split the tree, it'll start running everywhere and you'll lose a lot. This is a good thing about doing what we do. You get company and friends and stop BS. and then you Shanghai them in to put them to work.
Go ahead and wave, Jason. I can barely see you.
Oh, I know, it's running like crazy.
So, new rule, we maybe get a bag ready before we drill a hole.
Well, a lot of times we put all these together and they just lock into place. And actually, once you put the tap in there, it actually holds it down so it doesn't fall off.
It's kind of nice.
It just sets on there. It's really that simple. Depending on weather, depending on the sunshine, barometric pressure, it all plays a factor, but sometimes it won't run for a week and other times it'll run for a week straight and that bag will be full every day. So yeah, see, this is nice. Don't have to take much off here, just clean that up. Nope, I didn't get tops.
That is really running this year. Okay, that's one. Okay, so far we've tapped all along this ridge line here. Few here in this cluster. Some downhill kind of by the trail, and this big guy here 4 back. And Paul's finishing up as we speak, so.
I tapped this one too, there's no bag on it.
What?
I was gonna come tap this one, it's already tapped.
Oh. All right, I'll be there in a second. A lot of fun stuff going on out here. All right, so we just got done tapping all of our trees, and now we just got to play the waiting game. So we're gonna let these guys sit overnight, maybe a couple of days here. We'll check back a little bit later, and when the bags are full, we'll begin the process of collecting. So for you guys, it'll be a really quick transition, but for us, we're gonna have to wait a little bit. So let's get to it.
Well, here it is, a couple days after we tapped. We got a little bit the first day, it was really running. It got cold, things slowed down, and starting to warm back up again. So we are gonna go collect and try out the setup we put on the back of the gator. We will see what happens here. starting to run today. So that's the last of it. I don't want to leave it in this pail because it'll slosh around and spill on the way back down to the sap shack. We'll pump her all up into the tub. Quite honest with you, I know I'm talking to everybody out there on YouTube, but I'm talking to a little square camera and it's really odd. So I apologize for the silence, but so what I'm going to do now, we just got done collecting. We got it all in our tub here. I'm going to raise the box up just slightly and I'm going to open this valve. I'll show you that in a minute. And we're going to take the sap from here, shut this valve off. We're going to open this valve. I guess I better show you. And run this hose right here into the sap shack. Okay, so after we pull up to the sap shack, we'll turn the ignition on. We're going to raise the box up slightly. We are going to open this valve. That'll drain everything back into here. When this is full, we're going to turn this pump on. Instead of pumping it in, we shut this valve off and we open this one. And it'll go right inside. But one thing I did remember that I have to do, I got to shorten this hose right here. So I'm going to try to leave it run. I'm going to get a knife. We're going to cut that hose off.
Over the course of the next week and a half, we went out to collect a few more times to gather as much sap as we could during our brief window to make syrup this season. But after we managed to get another full tank on the back of the Gator, we decided to pull the plug on collecting and move on to the next phase in the process, that being boiling our sap.
Now here we are once again, now that we ran everything into there, into here, now we're going to run everything into here, there.
Alright, so we finally got enough sap to do a boil. It's gonna be our first boil session of the season. Maybe it might not be our last, we'll find out, but we have quite a lot in just about every single pan here. This froze over a little bit last night. I think we have a little bit left in this pan here. Not a lot, but gotta be careful, it's hot. More than enough to do some boiling. This is gonna be a lot of syrup. Yeah, it's looking pretty good right now. This is the first time, whoa, I personally boiled sap out here in the middle of a blizzard. So, let's check in every once in a while and show you guys the show once it really starts steaming. My dad started this little tradition that we used to do, and I know this is going to make all you people that make maple syrup probably have a heart attack, but we don't sell our maple syrup, we make it for us. You can't take it. But my dad started taking hot dogs, and instead of firing up a grill and wasting gas,
Nice boil like this right here. We just drop our hot dogs right in the sap. Have some nice sweet hot dogs made right in the maple syrup. Look at that. That baby cool down and have a bite. Best part about making maple syrup? Too many to mention. I don't know. Food, cookies, hot dogs, fresh sap, friends, family. Oh, look at here.
Hello, hello.
Within the next few days, we would have a total of 3 boiling sessions, yielding us just under 3.5 gallons to go to the finish. Despite the hardships within the last few years, there is still something about taking the time to slow down, boil some sap, and spend some time with friends and family that I just can't put into words, which still warms our hearts. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that even on the coldest and windiest of days out there, we can still hear Neo strumming away on his guitar whenever we sit down for a boil. It is without a doubt the most peaceful season of the year out here, and we will continue to look forward to it no matter what. The many traditions that were started out here years ago will be carried onward into the future. This is one of the core ongoings that makes this place so special to us, and we're thrilled to be able to share that story with you all. But we still have one last process to finish before the syrup is ready, and unfortunately, we were unable to get the wood stove you saw earlier ready to cap things off. So instead, we'll show you how we've done it since Paul took over the Sap Shack.
Now the fun job, cleaning the pan, getting everything put away. Stay tuned.
Finally making the batch of maple syrup today. Pay attention to how much sap we poured into that sucker. It doesn't look like a whole lot in that kettle, that's just the way it is. But it's still really good, trust me.
Here we go. I want her to boil over. So this is the filtering of the maple syrup. Usually have a big felt liner on the very bottom, but we need a new one. Gonna do the best we can with what we've got. So this is the first process. Just filtering out all the crud that's in there. These are the containers that come from the sap shack when we're done from making syrup. And we do let these containers sit for like a week to let the sediment settle in the bottom of them. So as we pour off the top, it's cleaner, and then when we get to the bottom, we get down to the stuff that's harder to filter out, which makes it a little bit easier. As you can still see here, I keep cleaning the filters, and we're just about down to the last of it. We didn't make a lot this year. Then the next thing after this is I have the canning jars on the stove. I'm heating them up. Usually I put them in a roaster pan. It's much easier. Make sure that the jars are sterile and the lids are hot so they seal. That'll be my next thing. This is the bottom filter that I usually put on, but not quite. So usually the bottom one is a really heavy felt. I almost describe it like a Sorel liner. We used it and used it and used it, and it finally fell apart. We have to get a new one next year, but that's a little thicker, so it really filters out a lot of sediment on the bottom. Back to here, so we took the syrup that I filtered through here. We now put it back on the stove. I've got a temperature thermometer, and I am going to bring this to a boil, and I am going to check it in our maple syrup tester. And I don't know if you can see this, but there is a cold test and a hot test. When we take it off in the sap shack, we try to get it towards the hot test to where it is floating by itself. And then we have to figure in the extra for heating it up to filter it through, and then for canning it. So I am going to recheck it and make sure it's what it needs to be, and then it will end up going back down to 160 degrees before I actually can it, so it does not get ice crystals in it. And another thing, do not let anybody else take over and watch your maple syrup boiling for you, because I've had a couple people, including my husband and my mother-in-law, boil it right over into every orifice of my stove. And if you've ever had that happen, you know it's an absolute mess. And the only thing I can say is I never got an awesome picture over it. That was the only thing I could have asked for. Otherwise, you never want to do that. So I took it off to cool with my temperature at, let it get down to 160 before I can, because you don't want to have ice crystals. I'm putting it in this nice little bowl. It's plastic, but it has a pour spout on it, so I can pour it into the jars really nice without spilling. And that's that. And then I put the lids on and let them sit and let them pop. It's always nice to can it on the same day because you don't have to reheat it for as long. So works out pretty good. This is the finished product. We got 2 gallons and a quart. Not bad for not doing a lot this year. I fill the jars quite full, but not over full, a little past the bottom line. Some nice looking maple syrup. So that's the end of it.
Well, everybody, I think that's going to bring the video to a close for today. We hope you enjoyed the story of one of our favorite traditions out here at the railway. We got a pretty massive storm rolling in at the time of me filming this, so I'm not going to stick around here for too long. But since we're outside, let me go give you an update on the railroad real quick. So here we are over at the site of the horse barn. We have been plugging away. slowly but surely. So expect an update on the railroad within the next couple of weeks. Until then, we got a couple other interesting projects to share with you guys before we get to that point. So, without further ado, I'm gonna start making my way back inside because as you can see, we got some pretty nasty clouds rolling in here. All right, before I head inside, I just couldn't help myself. If any of you Yoopers are out there watching and you get this reference, pat yourselves on the back. It's a little heavy on the sap.
The sap's what makes it.
Well, I didn't even make it to the garage before the wind really started to pick up, so I'm just gonna hide in here until this passes. So, thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed our story. And as always, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to put a smile on somebody's face today. We'll see you next week.